Guys, if you thought that Mr. Krabs wasn't greedy enough, in this one, he is so abysmal, so unlikable, so selfish, and so cold-hearted throughout the entire episode called the Krabby Chronicle. I really hate Mr. Krabs in this episode very much. So without further ado, let's get this episode started. Cue the intro. Hey guys, it's me, Disney, Tom and Jerry, The Simpsons, Dookie, and the Magic School Bus Fan 1996 here. Yes, I'm doing a rant on a SpongeBob episode this time, cause it's almost been like 2 years since I last did one. So yeah, I am continuing doing that one now. So yeah, without further ado, here's my review slash rant on the Krabby Chronicle. So basically what the plot's about, it's in the Krusty Krab, Mr. Krab has no customers and and then he goes out to find out people, and they were buying newspapers at the bottom feeder. A buyer informs Mr. Krabs that the examiner isn't interesting, and he learns that none of the stories were either truthful. But Mr. Krabs looks at the newspaper and finds out that they charge 25% per word. But then Mr. Krabs, of course, had an idea. He gives SpongeBob the new responsibility by taking pictures and for Mr. Krabs' newspaper. SpongeBob takes a picture of Patrick Star just standing there next to the bus stop sign. And then Mr. Krabs just hands out the newspaper, and the customers were not interested, and Mr. Krabs complained to SpongeBob that he needs to do better, and Mr. Krabs just tells SpongeBob to make real stories, like, that are actually, well, stories that Mr. Krabs actually makes up. Like, for an example, he crossed off Patrick standing at the bus stop sign into Patrick marrying the bus stop sign. Okay, that's really stupid to begin with. Why the hell would Mr. Krabs would even think about that? Is he sick in the head? And then yeah, SpongeBob has then begun to do several lies to other people. Like, he took a picture of Mrs. Puff and he took a picture of Mrs. Puff, and then she ended up losing her reputation as a good boating teacher. And then he takes a picture of Larry, and then Larry gets kicked out. And then he takes a picture of Plankton, and then Plankton ends up losing his restaurant. And Sandy science trophies is now being confiscated by the Neptunian Science Committee. And boy, was Sandy really pissed off when she found out about that. SpongeBob tries to convince Mr. Krabs that we're hurting people. SpongeBob was actually hurting his friends and the people, and Mr. Krabs like, I don't care. I don't give a dog's. So you know what? So keep on going, and I want you to write the wildest story ever. Okay. Okay, first up, when did Mr. Krabs not only become so addicted to money, but also very cold-hearted? What made him be possessed that way? And second of all, he's treating SpongeBob like a slave in this episode. And the worst part is, if he doesn't write more stories, he takes SpongeBob's spatula. If you don't do it, you could just kiss your spatula goodbye. And SpongeBob's like, Mr. Krabs, you wouldn't! And Mr. Krabs like, oh, hell yeah, I would. Now get your butt out of here and write me some more stories. That's how cold-hearted, merciless, and sadistic Mr. Krabs is in this show. So SpongeBob did wrote a story, one that was actually true, unlike the ones he did to Plankton, Mrs. Puff, Larry, and Sandy. And it says in it, and the story is about Mr. Krabs, of how he treated SpongeBob. Mr. Krabs treated SpongeBob like a slave, and everybody was so furious at him. And what do? They decide to take the money back. Mr. Krabs then bawls like a baby because his money's all gone. And then, does it stop there? No. He takes out a single dollar and he uses a printer to make copies of it, and he says to SpongeBob, please give me some scissors, it's time to use my imagination. And then, at the very end, in a very stupid way, Patrick's like, hey, can you make me and my wife a couple of Krabby Patties? And that's basically what the plot is for the entire episode. This was a very, very mean-spirited episode of SpongeBob. This was honestly a mean-spirited episode. Do I have anything positive? No. So let's jump into the negative. First of all, Mr. Krabs was very unlikable, cold-hearted, greedy, and very abysmal. He treated SpongeBob like a slave. He treated his very trusted employee like a freaking slave. And the worst part is, if he didn't write more stories, he will take away SpongeBob's spatula. That's the most merciless scene I've ever seen in a kids show. That's how merciless Mr. Krabs is. He's gonna take away SpongeBob's spatula if he doesn't get his act together and write more stories. And SpongeBob had written several lies. It's not because he wanted to do it. It's because of that sadistic Mr. Krabs. He was the one that ruined everyone's life. Like, he ruined Mrs. Puff, Larry's, Plankton's, and Sandy's life. And like I said, with Sandy, she was so dang pissed. She was so dang pissed about that. And Mrs. Puff was devastated, and so was Larry. And I believe Plankton was pretty pissed off too, because of Mr. Krabs' slave, SpongeBob, who wanted this right here just brings a very bad moral throughout the entire episode. Ruining everyone else's life, that's a very bad moral, and that's a very bad deed. Even telling lies is also a very bad thing. Mr. Krabs doesn't care about anyone but money. Of course he does. Because he's self-centered and abysmal. He doesn't give a dog's you-know-what to anyone else. And the way he forced SpongeBob to write lies about them, it's just sickening. Why would he even do that? What made him be possessed by doing that heinous stuff? I want to know why. And the ending was very stupid. Mr. Krabs loses his money and he cries because he lost the money, and then he uses a printer and asks SpongeBob for the scissors, and Patrick comes and says, "Duh, can you make me and my wife a couple of Krabby Patties?" If SpongeBob told lies, then why is this even true to begin with? That was the most stupidest ending I've ever seen. Feels like the director who made this episode just wants the children to do bad morals and bad things. Bottom line, this episode sucks. This was the most abysmal and cold-hearted and sickening episode I've ever had to see. Mr. Krabs was very unlikable. SpongeBob just tells lies, and it just brings... This episode just does bad morals and bad everything to people. This is a very bad episode. So yeah, for my final rating for the Krabby Chronicle, I'm gonna give this episode a 1 out of 7. Horrendous episode. And that's my review / rant on the Krabby Chronicle. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe to me. This is me signing off, and I'll see you guys later.